Okay, so we are now up to the penultimate video in this series on how to complete an action grant application form. If this video will only apply to applications for medium and large grants. If you're just applying for the £500 small grant, then you can skip this video and go on to the final video, number 7, that will deal with the budget. But I'm following the sequence of the application form. So we've got 4 questions here that are compulsory for the medium and large grants. And that round is in May 2020. So you will have to complete these. So this will be a slightly longer video because I'm addressing the whole 4 questions in the single video. The first of those is question 5. How will you ensure your project will continue to benefit your community in the future? This follows on very much from the answer you will have been required to give in question 4, where we talked about knowing your project's been successful and also some requests to talk about the impact of the project. With this question, we want, if you're applying for a medium or a large grant, we want to see more evidence of that planning, more confidence. We need to be more confident that what you're hoping will happen after the duration of the project comes about actually will happen. So rather than just saying, we hope that the attendees at this pilot will go on to other services, we would like to see evidence, for example, that you have contacted those other services and you've got a process in place where you might be able to support people to achieve that transition. So generally here it's asking for a lot more evidence. Although I've used the word hope here, um, we we are hoping that you won't just be talking about your hopes, but we want to see some confidence that this will be the case and some evidence for why you have that confidence. If your project was for some sort of capital investment, a piece of equipment, or an improvement to a venue or a location, then we want to think about not only the fact that there will be a benefit in the future, that we do want you to identify that, we want you to show that you've given some thought to how that improvement will be maintained. So who will be maintaining the venue or equipment in the future? What plans have you got in place for that? Okay, so question 6 is a request for a plan really for the project with milestones and a timeline. And we would like this to be detailed and realistic, and don't assume anything that's not guaranteed as far as you can. So if you're saying that your project is going to be based in a particular venue, name that venue. Um, Give us evidence that you are confident that you know that the venue is going to be available. If you need to find a location, then allow enough time in your timeline for that location venue to be identified before the project needs to begin. But with that example, we would probably expect that you have already done this. Um, if your project relies on volunteers, have you recruited those volunteers and trained them and got them in place? Um, if you haven't, then try to break down the steps of that recruitment and training. So, and don't just say, oh, week 1, recruit and train volunteers, week 12, volunteering, recruitment and training completed. Where are you going to recruit the volunteers from? Who's going to deliver the training? What methods have you got? Which individuals will be involved in the recruitment of volunteers to sell the nature of the project to them? So the more detail here, the better. Question 7 is about risks to the delivery of the project and actions you can take to limit the risk. And so often we get applications in that say there are really no risks to this project. But we want you to widen your concept of risk. So to extend it not just to things that will wipe the project out and stop it from operating at all, but anything that prevents your project from fulfilling the complete potential, we would like you to consider a risk. So think about things that may take the edge off your project. Um, and we want you to also to see some evidence of your sort of infrastructure within your organization to manage um, situations that come up that you haven't expected. So the more detail you have got with a plan, the better for that. What experience have you got from perhaps doing this sort of work before to show that you're adaptable to change when it comes up? Can you give examples of where change has occurred and you have adapted because you've got the skills, the project design, the management structure, or the individuals in your organization to be able to be flexible. And a really good way of addressing risks in project design is to include beneficiaries in the design of your project, because beneficiaries will be looking at it from a user perspective and they may well provide insights or an approach that you haven't considered. So if you have consulted beneficiaries in the design of your project, tell us that here. And the final question, I did speak to an element of this before in a previous question on the council plans. Um, and I mentioned there that for the medium and large grants, it's hoped that you will be going beyond just looking at the theme under which you're applying. So throughout these videos, we have talked about the sport and activity being the theme under which you're applying. The other themes are community, community safety, and youth, young people and youth. So it's hoped that your project, you will not only that your project will have an impact beyond just the sport and community sector, but that you have thought about that and that you have designed that somehow. So the most obvious way in which your project may have a wider impact will be on just on the community. Um, it might well be that your project also has a benefit for issues around community safety or for young people. But we are hoping as well that your project will be benefiting people who perhaps you're not as an organization already in touch with, or people you'll be bringing people together from a community that don't have contact with each other at the moment. So um, tell us how you're going to ensure both equality of access to your project, how you're going to ensure that your project is accessible to people with disabilities or who have very limited incomes. Um, but also, we want you to talk about um, to demonstrate that there are going to be new people coming together, hopefully from different elements of your community, and that will enhance a feeling or a spirit of community in the area in which you're working.